Hello, dear students. Today, with this session, we are going to start our online classes. Here, I'm going to start with the chapter 2. The some portion of this chapter we already completed in the offline class. I'm going to discuss the remaining section from chapter 2. So, we completed up to the topic distillation, and here we are going to discuss fractional distillation. We know that distillation is a process of separation which is used in case of two miscible liquids in which they have difference in their boiling point is more than 25 degree Kelvin. But which type of method can be used if the two immiscible liquid in which they have difference in their boiling point is less than 25 Kelvin? So in this case, we are going to use fractional distillation. It is nothing but fractional distillation is the process of separating the components of mixture by repeated distillation and condensation. That means if we do a small change in the apparatus for distillation process, then we will get the apparatus for fractional distillation. Just refer the page number 22, figure 2.10 for the diagram of fractional distillation. Okay, let's see the diagram in detail. This is almost similar to the apparatus for the distillation process, except an additional fractionating column is inserted in this apparatus. This is the distillation flask where we keep the mixture and just heat up so that this mixture start to boil up. And this mixture consists of two liquid in which their difference in their boiling point is less than 25 degree Celsius or 25 Kelvin. Then just heat it. What will happen if we boil this mixture? Because of the small difference in their boiling point, on boiling of the substance of small boiling point, the some vapors will be produced here, and with that vapors, some vapors of the second substance also may contain, because the substance also second substance also start to evaporate it. Even though it is not start to boil completely, it start to evaporate. To separate the second component, here we are using a fractionating column, which consists of lot of glass beads, and this fractionating column allows to this distillate and condense repeatedly, so that the second component remain in this fractionating tube and the first component will be get evaporated and it will passing through this distillation tube. And once it is passing through this distillation tube, the state of this mixture or state of this substance is in the state of vapor. So for condensing this vapor, we just allow to pass the cold water, and when this cold water is moving and through this cylinder, and it will be passing through here and it will get out of the second vial. So when this cold water is passing through this condenser, the heat which contained in the vapor will absorb by this cold water. So when this cold water absorb the heat, what will happen? This vapor present in this glass tube will get cooled down so that it will condense and is converted into the state of liquid. It is very similar to the what you call distillation. Only the difference is that a fractionating column is added to the distillation apparatus. Let's see the explanation given in your textbook. This apparatus is similar to that of simple distillation, except that a fractionating column is fitted in between distillation flask and condenser. Only that is a difference. Okay. What is the purpose of these beads provided in this fractionating tube? Only the purpose is that to provide the surface for vapors to cool and condense repeatedly. So this is all about a fractional distillation. Okay. Fractional distillation is mainly used in separation of gases from air. This technique is mainly used for separation of different gases from air. Especially the atomic separation unit oxygen plants are working by using this technique. That is very important to remember it. Okay, AIC oxygen plants, because nowadays we know that need of medical oxygen is very necessary, especially during this COVID pandemic. So in these such types of oxygen plant, not in all the plants, because different plants are working with a different principle. ASU oxygen plants, atomic separation unit oxygen plants, are working with this fractional distillation technique. Okay, and in this separation of components of air, how it is fractional distillation is applied to separate the components of air. We know that air is a mixture because it consists of different gases like nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, etc. So to separate these components like nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide from air, we are using this technique. Okay, so how it works? Suppose if we want to separate oxygen, because we know that oxygen is very essential for the existence of life. So nowadays today medical industry need large amount of liquid oxygen. So to separate oxygen from air, we have to separate out of all the other gases present in the air, because air is a mixture of more than one type of gas, and this air is compressed by increasing the pressure, because we know that by compressing gases can be converted to liquid, and also it can be cooled by decreasing the temperature to get liquid air. We already discussed in the case of state or changes state of matter, by increasing the pressure and decreasing the temperature, a gas can be converted to liquid. So here the air in the state of gas converted to liquid air by applying these two conditions. Okay, then this liquid air is allowed to warm up slowly. Okay, this liquid air is allowed to warm up slowly in fractional distillation column, then where the gases get separated at different heights depending upon their boiling point. Okay, let's see this figure 2.12 given in page number 23. Okay, so that we will get a clear idea how this process happened. This is the normal air coming to this fractional distillating apparatus or plant after the filtration. So here the purpose of filter is that to separate the large dust particles from the air, so that we will get a clean air. Okay, so first we will use the filtration technique for separating the dust particles. Okay, after the filtration, the fresh air comes passing through this part, so that there will be compressor will be attached. By using this compressor, there are two pistons actually. These two are pistons. By using this compressor, the air will be get compressed, so that the temperature will be increased and the hot air is moving through this. Okay. Also, there is a condensation process is doing here. There is a one what you call pipe. Okay, it is moving like this, and what is the purpose of using this? Just passing the cold water through this pipe, so that it is we know that it is using for the condensation process. Here, when this cold water is passing through this air, the temperature from this hot air will be absorbed by this cold water, so that this hot air will be getting cooled down. Once this is cooled down, then it will be compressed air, and here one separator is connected. From this separator, this when it is cooled down, this carbon dioxide, we know that carbon dioxide will not be converted to the liquid state. It is directly converted from what you call air or gaseous state to solid state, clear, by the process of deposition. So unlike other gases like nitrogen, oxygen, etc., carbon dioxide will not be keep in the state of liquid. Air is get cooled down, that directly it converted to the state of solid, which is we'll call it as dry ice. Carbon dioxide will be converted to solid state directly. So carbon dioxide is separated. Now this remaining air, the major components of the remaining air will be nitrogen and oxygen, because we know that nitrogen, the percentage of nitrogen is almost, what is the amount of nitrogen? It is almost 78 percentage, and oxygen is almost 21 percentage, or approximately, because the range of the percentage of the oxygen and nitrogen will be varied from place to place. So approximately it is 21 percentage in nitrogen. Now the remaining major components are nitrogen and oxygen. Okay, So these two components can be separated as like this. When this liquid air is good, that is a mixture of mainly nitrogen and oxygen. Actually, up to this, just a conversion of gaseous air into liquid air and separation of carbon dioxide. Up to this portion, this area or this process is not the part of fractional distillation. What is the purpose of this unit? This unit is acting like converting the gaseous air to the liquid air and also separating the dry carbon dioxide. This is not fractional distillation. Fractional distillation we are going to proceed in this portion. Okay. So what action? When this liquid air is passing through this expansion jet, we know that the gaseous air is converted to liquid air by applying the pressure. So we cannot keep in an open place. This liquid air cannot be kept in open place. It can be only stored in the cylinder. When it is kept open, it will be again converted to gaseous as the pressure decreases. So when this liquid air is passing through a nozzle, that means it is also called an expansion jet. Why it is known as expansion jet? Because while this liquid air is passing through this nozzle, this air is getting expanded. So what will happen? As this air is get expanded, means it is slowly warm up. Okay, as slowly warm up, it is get expanded. That means start to similar to like a boiling, because from liquid to vapor it is converted. Then what will happen? According to their boiling difference in their boiling point, the different gases will be collected at a different height. So we will get oxygen at the bottom, and that oxygen will be again collected it as a liquid oxygen. Remember why? Because the boiling point of the nitrogen and argon are very smaller than compared to the boiling point of oxygen. So this all other gases will be get vaporized faster, and those all will be separated. In the remaining air liquid, only the presence of oxygen will be. Next separation technique is that crystallization. Crystallization is the process of separate a pure solid in the form of its crystal from a solution. So see here, if the solution contains some impurities, then we can purify that solution. We can get the pure solid from that solution by the process of crystallization. And some crystallizations are very slow, take place very slowly, and some crystallization take place in a normal way. And what are the applications here? Purification of salt that we get from seawater is actually the application of crystallization, because we will get to the water from the sea, that is salt water, which is salt is dissolved in the water and kept it for crystallization. What will happen? We will get a salt crystal from the water. And purification of copper sulfate from impure copper sulfate sample, and separation of crystals of aluminum from impure sample. So this is actually a very complicated process. Nowadays different type of crystallization method are available. You will learn this in detail in the higher classes. And why crystallization is considered better than simple evaporation? You may be thinking that actually crystallization is used for separating solids from liquids. Evaporation is also same, just keeping the solution for evaporation so that the solid liquid portions of the solution will be evaporated, and finally the solid portions will be left over. So same, but why crystallization is considered better than the simple evaporation? The reason is that some solids decompose, or some like sugar may get charred on heating to dryness. So for evaporation, if you go for heating, some solids decompose, and also on heating some solids may get charred. Like if you heat the sugar solution, what will happen? It is get heat up and it is get converted to a black color. You may have observed that one. So these are the what you call disadvantage of simple evaporation. So but in case of crystallization, this issue is not arising, so that it is convenient. And some impurities may remain dissolved in the solution after filtration. That is also very important. Some impurities may remain dissolved in the solution even after filtration. So on evaporating, this contaminated the solid. Sometimes these impurities may remain dissolved in solution even after filtration. That means still some impurities will be remain in the solution even after filtration, so that during the evaporation this contaminate that solid. This impurities will not evaporate with the solution, it will keep with that solid, so it contaminate. That means it makes that solid impure. Purification of water. The purification of water consists of many suppression techniques. Main techniques are used in purification of water: sedimentation, filtration, chlorination. Chlorination is the process of adding chlorine or chlorine compounds, okay, such as sodium hypochlorite. That is a material which contain chlorine to the water. What is the purpose of adding this? Is that this is used to kill bacteria, virus, and other microbes present in the water. That means, in particular, this chlorination is used to prevent the spread of waterborne diseases. That is the main purpose. It's actually used for preventing the waterborne diseases. Okay, so let's see the figure given in page number 24, 2.13. See here, you can see this is the reservoir which contains impure water. Okay, and this impure water passing through the sedimentation tank, it allows solid to settle down. That means the bigger particles get settled down by the process of sedimentation. Sedimentation is nothing, it is just a deposition of the denser particle from a mixture. Okay, and again it passing through the second tank, that is called a loading tank. In this tank also the same process, sedimentation, is going on, but the thing is that in first tank the very much bigger particle will be deposited, and again somewhat smaller, comparatively smaller to the particles which is settled down in the first tank. So that will be separated in the second tank. So in both the tank actually it is going the process, that is sedimentation. After that it is passing through the filtration tank. This filtration tank consists of three layers: fine sand particle in the first layer, and in the second layer it is actually gravels. Okay, and in third level coarse gravel. Okay, and when it is passing, that means this is somewhat fine one, this is a little big one, and when this water is passing through this three layer, okay, through the fine sand, then through the gravel, and through the coarse gravel, and this almost all the impurities will be getting subfiltrated. Output of this filtration tank will be almost pure, and after that it is again passing through a chlorination system. So now we get the purest water. Okay, so the what we call the purification of water cannot be done with a single step. It involves sedimentation. Okay, in these two steps, here as well as here sedimentation is going on. Here it is filtration. Okay, and after sedimentation, filtration, then chlorination. Okay, there are mainly 4 steps is used. Also remember, in addition to this, nowadays in modern water purifier we are also using UV filtration. UV filtration technique is also used. That means this is the simple water purifier. Now we are going to discuss the chemical change and the physical change. What do you understand by chemical and physical changes? That is very simple. We already learned in small classes. Let's see the differences between the physical and chemical changes. Physical change, that means physical change only change the appearance of substance, not its chemical composition. Only change the appearance of substance. For example, if we boil the water, water is in the state of liquid, but vapor is in the state of gas. But still, that is vapor is also content of water particles. Clear? That means its chemical composition is not changing, only its physical appearance, like changing from liquid to solid state. Sorry, gaseous state. While in case of chemical change, it causes a substance to change into an entirely substance with a new chemical formula. For example, if we burn hydrogen, if it is burn hydrogen, we will get a hydrogen react with the burning. That means combustion. Combustion is the what you call reactive with the oxygen. So what we will get? We will get a H2O, hydrogen and Two hydrogen and one oxygen. So we will get H2O. That is the 2H2O we will get. Okay. When two hydrogens reacting with one oxygen, we will don't worry about this balancing of equation that you will be learn later. But I'm just saying that when hydrogen burning, it react with oxygen, and the product we will get it as a water. And the chemical formula of this reactor, the substance which is used in this combustion process are hydrogen and oxygen, but the product we got it as a water. So that means in chemical change, a substance change to entirely new substance. And generally, this change is temporary and reversible. In case of boiling of water, I told you that that is an example of physical change. Once the water is boiled, if you get vapors of water and just let it cool down, what will happen? Again, that water vapors condensed and converted to liquid water. Clear. That means this change is temporary and irreversible generally. But in case of chemical changes, these changes are permanent and irreversible. For example, suppose once you burn a paper, what will happen? Will you able to make the paper from the ash? It's not possible because it is permanent to change and it is irreversible. That is the very important thing you have to remember. It is a irreversible, and there is no formation of new product. Of course, in case of physical change, even if it is in the state of water, liquid water, or what you call this vapor, no change in the no formation of new product. While in case of chemical change, there is a formation of new product. That is a very important point we have to remember. Next one is that a physical change affect only physical properties of shape, size, etc. For example, if you boil a water, 1 liter water, its water vapor may contains 10 liters. Its volume may be 10 liters. That means size is changing. While in case of chemical change affect both the physical as well as chemical properties of the substance, including the composition. For example, if you are going to burn a white paper, what will you get after burning? The ashes will be in black in color. Clear. So that is color is changing. That means chemical properties, also physical. It is size, everything is paper was actually plain, but after burning it is become powder. So physical, both physical as well as chemical properties will change. And some examples given here, it is freezing of water, melting of wax. During melting of wax, solid wax is converted to liquid wax. Boiling of water. These are the chemical examples for the chemical changes. And some examples for physical changes, it are this digestion of food. Once the food is digested, it cannot be reversible. It's purely chemical change. Burning of coal or anything. Rusting means iron or a metal react with oxygen in the presence of moisture. That is called rusting. So rusting is also a chemical change. And this chemical change is also known as a chemical reaction, because during the chemical change, I told you this is the chemical reaction. When hydrogen is reacting with oxygen to form water in the combustion of hydrogen, it is a chemical reaction. Clear. So this is the all about chemical change and physical change. Okay. And now come to the next topic, that is pure substance. Till now we have discussed only about the impure substance. We know that impure substances are different category. While in case of pure substance, only two kind of pure substance. On the basis of their composition, pure substance can be classified into two category. One is elements. What is a element? It is a basic form of matter that cannot be broken down into a simple substance by chemical reaction. An element is a material with that consists of a single type of atom. We will discuss what is atom in the next chapter. That is a fundamental particle or building block of all the matter. So it consists only one kind of atom, and it is the matter which cannot be broken down into simple substances by chemical reaction. For example, hydrogen gas, that is the element because it consists only hydrogen atom. By doing chemical reaction, you can't do anything with the hydrogen gas because that consists only hydrogen. The second type of pure element, pure substance, is that called compound. A compound is a pure substance composed of two or more elements chemically combined with another in a fixed proportion is called compounds. So you maybe think that it may be a mixture. It is not a mixture. It is still a pure substance. Even though it is composed of two or more elements, but it is still considered as a compound because it is chemically combined, not physically, with one another in a fixed proportion. For example, water is a compound. Here see you can see that H2O. This hydrogen and water is chemically combined in the proportion 2:1, 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. Clear? Even though it consists of hydrogen and oxygen, it is not considered as a impure substance or mixture. It is still a pure substance because it is a compound. We will discuss what is the difference between compound and mixture later in this section so that you will get a clear idea. And mainly elements, I told you that pure substance classified into elements and compounds. Again, elements are generally classified into what you call metals and non-metals, metalloids. Metals and non-metals we already learned in class 8, the physical as well as the chemical properties of metals and non-metals. And here we are going to discuss again that what are the differences between metals and non-metals and metalloids. In case of metals, see they are lustrous, sonorous and malleable. Okay, lustrous, sonorous and malleable. And in case of non-metals, they are not sonorous, malleable or lustrous. Okay, and in case of metals, they have silvery gray or golden yellow color. Most of the metals are in the silvery gray or golden yellow color. For example, the metals familiar metals are like gold, silver. What is the color of gold? Almost like yellow, golden yellow. And silver is a silvery color. Iron is a gray, almost gray. So what a copper is a almost yellowish, golden yellow color. Most of the metals have the color of golden yellow or a silvery gray. Okay. While in case of non-metals, they display variety of colors. For example, color of sulfur is yellow. Color of carbon is almost black. Color of phosphorus is different in color, like black, red, white, etc. Non-metals show different variety of colors. They don't have any common property in the color. Now come to the conductivity. Metals are good conductors of heat and electricity. Okay, metals are good conductors of heat and electricity. While in case of non-metals, they are poor conductors of heat and electricity. That is very important. And examples of gold, copper, silver, hydrogen, oxygen, iodine. These are the examples of non-metals. Now, while we come to the metalloids are some category of exception. Like they have intermediate properties between those of metals and non-metals. Examples are boron, silicon, etc. These are the metalloids because they have both properties of metals as well as non-metals. Okay, so this is all about the classification of elements. Okay, now we are moving to the last topic of this chapter, that is mixtures and compound. So to understand mixtures and compound, we are going to take the one example here that when two or more elements combine, we get either compound or mixture. While we're discussing this section, we will get a clear idea about why compounds are considered as a pure substance. When two or more elements combine, we get either a compound or a mixture. Either compound or a mixture. That means, how does this element combine? Depending on the nature of combination of elements, we can decide whether it will be a compound or a mixture. Clear? For example, when iron filings and sulfur powder, okay, iron filings and sulfur powder are mixed up together, we get a mixture of iron filings and sulfur powder. Okay, don't worry about this activity. Link for this watching this video of the activity will be given in your e-note so that you can watch that video, so you will get a clear idea about this example. Okay, and I'm just going to explain theoretically. So when sulfur powder mix up together, mixture of iron filing, we will get a mixture. Now if you take a small amount of this mixture and heat it till it is red hot, because we know that when a substance get heat up, it will change its color to red, yellow, white, blue, etc. So it just heat up to red till red hot. Then remove from the flame and let the mixture cool it. After it cools, we get a compound. Why it is called a compound? Because on heating these elements make a chemical bond between them. Iron filings and sulfur powder both are in the state of solids. Okay, and they never make any chemical bond between them. They will just keep us physically distinct. If you heat up that mixture, you will get a chemical bond. That means you are supplying a heat energy so that there will be some chemical reaction take place, and as a result of this chemical reaction they make a chemical bond between them and convert it to compound. Here see, same element, iron filings and sulfur, but still we got one is compound, one is mixture. I hope you understood clearly. That means when two elements chemically combine, that will be compound. That will be turned into simple substance. And when they are physically just combined physically without making any chemical bond, that will be turned into mixture. Okay. And on the basis of this example, let's just list out the differences between the mixture and compounds. In these mixtures and compound, let's summarize these differences. What are the first differences here given? Elements or compounds just mix up together to form a new mixture and no new compound is formed. While elements react to form a new compound. When elements do not react and just mix up, that will be mixture. When elements react to form a new compound, that will be a compound. And what is the second property? A mixture has a variable composition, while in case of a composition of a new substance is always fixed. For example, I will tell you, in case of a water, I already explained the beginning of the class, that is in case of water, the chemical ratio proportion of this composition of the water and oxygen will be H2O. That means 2:1. From wherever this composition is fixed, irrespective of the source of the water you take. While come to the mixture, for example, salt solution. In case of salt solution, you can make a salt solution in the ratio 1:10. If you take 1 gram of salt and 10 gram of water. Or you can make a salt solution in the ratio of 2:15. If you mix up 2 gram of salt and 15 gram of water, then you will get in this ratio. So that means the chemical composition of the mixture is always variable. That is a second point we have to remember regarding here it is fixed. Okay. The third one is that a mixture shows properties of the constituent substances. For example, I will tell you that salt water. In case of salt water, you will get the it will show the properties of water because it seems like water, okay, transparent liquid, and also it is salty in taste, clear. That means the properties of mixture will be the properties of constituent substances, the substances which is combined to form this mixture. While in case of new substance, that means compound, it is totally different properties. For example, I will tell you that property of water. See, hydrogen is a combustible substance, highly combustible, and oxygen is a catalyst for combustion. That means it helps for the combustion process. But when this hydrogen and oxygen chemically combined and form a water, it is become or it act as an extinguisher of the combustion or fire. The properties of hydrogen and oxygen are independently as best combustion process. But when it is turned to water, water is just acting as an extinguisher. It is used for stopping the fire. That means it's in case of compound, it's physical property or chemical, whatever it is, entire properties will be different from the properties of its constituents. And the last point difference we have to remember that the constituent can be separated by fairly easily by physical method. For example, if you go to take the iron filings and sulfur, a simple mixture, if you just bring the bar magnet near to the mixture, you can see that iron filings will be attracted towards the bar magnet, and it will be get stick on the bar magnet so that the iron filings will be separated from the sulfur. And here the constituent can be separated only by chemical or electrochemical reactions. By using chemical or electrochemical reactions, you can separate the constituent. For example, we have learned in class 8, that is by using the electrolysis, that means especially hydrolysis. That means when electricity is passing through the water by with the help of electrode, this hydrogen and oxygen bubbles will be formed on two electrodes. That means hydrogen and oxygen can be separated from the water with the help of electrochemical reaction. Not only electrochemical, in case of some compound, it can be used as a simple chemical reaction. Clear? So this is the differences between the mixtures and the compound. So dear students, actually there is a lack of the stylus with me, so that in the next class I will be taking with that one. So just try to understand, and if you have any doubt, you can ask your doubt. The next video I will come with another chapter. So thank you all.